Well, you know what time it is. It's Wednesday, where I discuss all of the fun crochet and knit and what other crafty things I've been up to for the week. I do this every Wednesday. However, I've missed the last week or two just because I've been doing other things and I really didn't have anything to show you. But I'm back today. It is June 24th. It's kind of an overcast, stormy type of day, although we don't have rain yet. We've had tons and tons of rain over the last week, especially over the weekend. So much so that our entire street was flooded. Luckily, by Monday morning, it was gone, so I could leave the house and go to work. And here we are on Wednesday. The street is clear for now until we get some of this rain. I'm hoping we won't get as much as we've had, although I do kind of like a nice rainy, cozy day here and there. If you're new here, my name is Marlise. This is BitKnits. Thank you so much for joining me today. So happy to have you here. We are going to get right into this now. If you've been watching my channel for a couple months at least, you'll know that I started working on the Year of Granny Square book. It is a nice book with lots and lots of different styles of granny squares. It's by Kylie Maletta. And again, it is full of ideas, different types of granny squares. And then every once in a while, there's a little pattern idea picture. I worked all of the spring squares. That's how the book is set up. You have one section that is like 13, 14 squares that represent springtime. There's another set that represent summer, another set for fall, and then a last set for winter. I have all of these squares that I worked for that spring set. A lot of different types of granny squares. We've got traditional kind of granny squares. We've got unique constructions of granny squares. A fillet granny square. A nice stitch pattern type granny square. And these were all from the spring section of the book. These are little 3D kind of puffy type flowers on those granny squares. I was thinking that this project would be super quick. I was thinking I can get through the book in no time. That is not the case. A lot of these granny squares have taken me so long, more than an hour to make, and so I really only try to make one a night every few days. I managed the first 4 from the summer section. Here is the Sunset Skies. It is the first square for summer. And I'm trying to go in order. And here is my version of it. And yes, you may be wondering, why are your squares so big? Well, when I first started, this was the very first square that I made from the spring section. It was the very first square in the book. It said for the hook size 6 US. I completely zoned out, wasn't thinking. I used a 6mm crochet hook. No, it's supposed to be a 4 or a 6 US, not a 6mm. But since I did that one and didn't realize my mistake until further along in this granny square journey, I have very large squares, but that's fine. So some of these are super large because I'm just using a 6mm. There have been a few squares where I think I've used like a 5.5mm just because I felt like it was going to be gigantic if I used the 6mm. And I want to try to keep all of these squares relatively the same size so I can join them together at the end. And the book does change in hook size depending on what square you're working on. So if you're going to tackle this book and want to combine all of the squares together or certain squares together, make sure you read extra careful that hook size and the directions and all of the fun stuff that a lot of us tend to kind of skip over because we're so excited to jump right into the project. Just give it a quick read. Make sure you don't make the same mistake I did. Otherwise, you'll wind up with really large squares and it might be difficult to join them together if that's what you're going to do. But here is my first summer square. This one was just your traditional type granny square. You work those center rounds for so many rows. Let's see if we can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds in the pink, and you fasten off, and then you pick up your second color and you join it in any corner space, and you just kind of work a decrease pattern until you have that one at the top, and then you've got the space here. You flip it around to the opposite side, do the same thing with those decreases, fasten off, pick up your third color, do the same thing on the other side. So you would just join in a corner space, same thing on this side, decrease and fasten off, weave in your ends, and you have a really nice, fun looking square. I like this because there is a pattern idea where you can combine those granny squares like this, and you can make sort of like a patchwork blanket out of just by using one square all the same. So you would just make a bunch of squares all the same, and then you could join them together and you get a nice, cool looking blanket or project. So square one for summer. Our next square is called Midsummer, and it is basically a sun type motif surrounded by your background color, which here they've used blue, so that sun motif really stands out. Let's take a look at mine. I did a darker yellow and a darker blue. I'm trying to kind of keep the colors similar, so you can see I've used a similar dark blue, not exactly this color. I'm also using my scraps, so I'm just kind of picking what I have available, and it does take more yarn than you would think to make some of these squares. This one was not too complicated. There's only that one color change. You work a circle in rounds to start. One round at the end here on that very edge is a back loop only, so you get this nice ridge. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there is a little bit of a ridge there. You create this round here where you've got the little sunbeams, and then you would join in your background color and you work around to kind of cover up. I think that's like a chain in between those, and you just work around so you can't even see those chains, and it looks really cool. A really fun square to do. And then these are just, I think, double crochets, maybe half double. The hardest part for me on these squares is the rounds near the top where you have to start squaring it off, and it's kind of a lot of counting. And so when I'm working on these sometimes at night and people are asking me questions or need me to do something, I have to keep stopping, and then I forget exactly where I was in this square. So I kind of have to go back and recount. So I think that's part of the reason why it's been taking me just a little bit longer to complete these squares. 2 squares for the summer. I managed to get 2 more done. The next one, Sunflower Days. How cool is that? It's a nice sunflower type motif in the center. They used a darker yellow followed by a lighter yellow and then a lighter blue followed by a darker blue to border it. I did pretty much the same thing, and I was not sure how these colors were going to work up together because I've used almost like a mustard in the center, and then I went with a really bright yellow. And again, this is mainly because it's just yarn that I have in my stash, and I kind of need to use it so I can go get more yarn. Then I've used a light blue and a dark blue as the outer portions. This square was not too difficult to make, although there's a lot of trebles and double trebles up here with that lighter, brighter yellow. And I find that when I'm working the double trebles and the trebles, and this is all US terms, my hook gets, I guess I just try to work them too quickly as if they were a double crochet. And so when I'm yarning over back through two, all of those times to get through the treble crochet, a lot of times I will lose a loop and I'll have to just start that stitch again. So that slowed me up on this one, but otherwise it is a really pretty straightforward pattern. And for this book, there are pattern instructions that are written out, and there's also a chart. So you also get the chart with it, which is definitely helpful because I've noticed that there may be some pattern errors, or maybe I'm just not reading the pattern correctly, or I'm reading it too fast or something, or it doesn't quite make sense to me, and I need to kind of refer to that chart just so I'm on the right track, or at least that it assures me that I'm on the right track. So there's square number 3. I like how the edges are kind of dipped here. I don't know how that's going to work up when I join. I think I'm going to have to join just on those peaks instead of every stitch across. But we will deal with that when we get there. Finally, we've got square 17. I am not even going to try to say this name, but it is a nice 3D flower surrounded by a nice blue background is what they did here. So that is their version, and here is mine. Now you can tell that my hook size was really large because those chain spaces around the flower are really big. In the book, they're not quite as noticeable as they are in mine, but that's fine. Again, this one was not too difficult. This was probably the easiest 3D type square that I've done so far in this book. You've got flowers, little petals behind, and then in front. Really easy. You work around here, and then you work petals into chain spaces. Again, the sort of the bordering, squaring off sections are the most difficult for me right away because you really need to count, make sure you're on track with where the corners are going to be. But all in all, these 4 squares have been much easier than some of the other ones that I've done for the spring. So I get to add these squares to my collection, and this is going to be quite a large blanket or whatever I decide to create from it. But I'm super excited to see what squares are coming next. There are 52 squares in this book, and I've gone through 17 of them, so we still have plenty left to work on. I'm going to try to work on as many as I can per week so I can return the book, because this is from the library. If you watched my videos before, I kept this book in the spring because I wanted to make sure that I got all of those spring squares done, and it was just taking me so long. The book was overdue, so I returned it and I rechecked it out recently so I could start working on those summer squares. If you haven't taken a look at this book, I highly recommend it. If you're unsure if you're going to like the squares, because they are very different. They're not your traditional type granny squares. They're a little bit more involved, They take a little bit more time. They're not mindless at all. You really need to kind of pay attention, but you do get some really neat patterns from those squares. There's some neat ideas of what to do with those squares. I do highly recommend it, even if you just are interested in a certain square that I've showed you. See if your local library has it, check it out, and you don't have to make all 52. There are super easy ones in here, and there are ones that I have already struggled with myself, and I've had to redo and try again a few times. So it's not just for super experienced crocheters, it's not just for beginner crocheters. There's definitely a square for almost anybody in this book. I'm going to keep working on my squares. Hopefully I'll have another one or two, maybe more, to show you next week. I've also got a ton of blankets on my hook right now, at least 3 or 4. So I really need to get working on those. I'm also doing a Mystery Monday Make series where I spin a wheel online and it tells me what free pattern to crochet that week. And they're all new patterns to me. This week we are making a crochet whale, which is an amigurumi, and that has been quite different from what we have made so far, so I'm enjoying that. I'm also working on a few upcoming tutorials, so look forward to that. Just a bunch of everything going on over here. I'm also finishing up with the most recent virtual yarn store visit video, and in this series I am trying to find local yarn stores or hand dyers around the United States, and I purchase typically those mini skeins if they have them. Take a look at it, kind of review it a little bit, and I'm making just your standard granny squares from all of that yarn that I'm going to put into a gigantic blanket. So I'm finishing up the most recent video on that one, so that'll be coming out shortly. And I haven't gotten very far really in it. I think we've only done a handful of videos for that one, so there's still quite a few to go, but it has been really fun searching out new, to me at least, local yarn stores, small businesses, hand dyers, and seeing what they have to offer and trying new types of yarn. It's been really eye-opening for me, completely different than just going to your local Walmart or Michael's or wherever you buy yarn that is sort of those big box business type places. Just seeing the difference in customer service and yarn quality has really opened my eyes. And yes, it's a little bit more expensive than shopping at your big box store type places, but the quality you get is fantastic. With all that being said, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.